All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to our webinar this evening to talk about how next fall will look at John Carroll University for our students. And we are thrilled to have several panelists here with us this evening. If we can go to the next slide, I'll introduce who you'll be hearing from tonight. My name is Stephanie Levinson. I'm Vice President for Enrollment Management at John Carroll. I'm going to be joined by several of my colleagues, Dr. Sherry Crahan, who's Vice President for Student Affairs and Dean of Students, Dr. Stephen T. Herbert, who's Provost and Academic Vice President, Lisa Brown Cornelius, who's the Senior Director in the Office of Residence Life, and helping me tonight with moderating duties is Mike Scanlon, who's Assistant Vice President of Marketing and Communications. I'd also like to take a moment to our students and parents who have both made the decision to come to John Carroll and join us for the class of 2025 and the transfer class of fall 2021. You've made a great decision. We also know that there are students and parents out there this evening who are making the final decision, and we are here to help you. We hope the information we share with you this evening gives you confidence in how you'll enjoy John Carroll and benefit from the John Carroll education. We know you've had a challenging year, and we look forward to welcoming you to John Carroll in the fall. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Sherry Crahan from Student Affairs.
Thanks so much, Stephanie. And I also just want to say good evening, everyone. I'm so happy to be with you this evening. And I'm really excited for the opportunity to talk to you about getting ready for the fall semester. So I want to talk a little bit about the coming fall semester and what we are very, very excited about. We have the opportunity for in-person learning this fall. We know that some of you may continue to be in remote classes, but for us at John Carroll, we will have the person for primarily in-person learning. This summer, if you have committed to John Carroll, we have the opportunity for our in-person orientation. We have one virtual option, but we have 6 in-person orientations scheduled, mostly through the month of June. So if you haven't taken an opportunity to sign up, we certainly hope that you do so. With our residence hall experience, you will have the opportunity to not only live on campus, but also have a roommate. Certainly for many of our students, part of the college experience is living on campus. It's the whole process of living in a community, the process of community development, learning to have a roommate, connecting with a roommate, and connecting with people in your residence hall and in that community. We recognize the benefits of residential living, and we hope you are equally excited about those opportunities. We will let you know we do have a little renovation project that will be happening during the upcoming year. One of our residence halls we are taking offline and will be renovated. So perhaps for your sophomore year, you might get to live in Dolan Residence Hall. And there will be some sneak previews in the coming year for that experience. We're also excited about our dining hall, which is called Shot Dining Hall. That's primarily where our students eat their meals. We do have other dining options. We have a snack bar in our student center. We have a coffee bar over in our library. We also have a small coffee service in our student center, but we are excited for in-person dining. This past year, we have a new relationship with Parkhurst Food Service, and our students have been very, very happy with this food service program. So we're excited for you to take advantage of that. When you come to summer orientation, you'll be able to eat in our dining hall. So that, I hope, is something you're looking forward to. And, you know, with COVID, we've had to make changes to our athletics program, but we are very, very excited for the upcoming year with athletics. So this past spring, all of our varsity athletes have competed. And so it's been a very, very spring for our coaches, our athletic trainers, and all of our staff. So they've had condensed seasons, but it's worked. But certainly I know that our student athletes, and you may know that about a quarter of our students are student athletes, they are certainly looking forward to the upcoming academic year and the opportunity to participate in athletics, not in a condensed version the way we did this spring. So that's also something that we're looking forward to. We also want to think about your recreation opportunities. In addition to our students who are varsity athletes, we were able to open our recreation facilities this past spring. We certainly followed the COVID guidelines, and so we have a reservation system with our Corbo Fitness Center. Interestingly, some of our students actually prefer our reservation system because they can count on when they're going to go work out. They know that it will be clean. So that's actually worked out really well for us. And it's been really, really busy, the recreation center. So that's good news, because as you think about your experience at John Carroll, we certainly want you to think about what your balance is between taking classes and your out-of-class activities. So how are you taking care of yourself, both mentally but physically as well? So we hope that you participate either in working out at the fitness center. You might want to think about a club sport. You might want to think about intramurals. There will be fitness classes. So all of those in-person opportunities will be available to you. As we think about the fall, our campus ministry program will be providing in-person retreats. We have a partnership with the Jesuit Retreat Center, which is just across town over in Parma. We have had the opportunity to have in-person retreats this semester, and we will certainly continue to do so in the fall. Additionally, we have had a combination this spring of not only in-person but virtual Carroll faith communities. So this is an opportunity for a small group of students to come together weekly as a chance to get to know other students, but to talk about how their week is going, to talk about their faith, and their whole experience at John Carroll. So we've had really, really good interest from our students in our Carroll faith communities. As you think about the fall semester, we have about 100 student organizations for our students to become engaged in. So I want you to think about not only your academic program, but your opportunities to get engaged in your student experience outside of the classroom. We are going to need you and need your help. Some of our student organizations have been a bit challenged with the pandemic, and I'll give you one example, and that's our LABRA program. So we have a group of students who for many, many years were involved in feeding the homeless in Cleveland on every Friday night. But due to the pandemic, they had to stop that level of service. And so that group I know has struggled. So I'm hoping that some of our incoming students will take the opportunity to connect with other students who are active in LABRA and think about the John Carroll mission and our opportunity to really lead and serve and to help others. So that's an opportunity with our student organizations. Many of you will be living on campus in the fall, and we really hope you take advantage of the opportunity to stay on campus over the weekend. Our Student Union Programming Board provides activities Thursday nights, Friday nights, and Saturday nights. We've had actually very excellent success with a virtual bingo program, which has become hugely popular with our students. So not all things about the pandemic have been bad. Even as we're excited to resume in-person activities, we've done so this spring, we will do so in the fall. We might want to keep some of the activities like virtual bingo because we've had excellent participation from our students. But for example, our programming board this weekend, this Saturday, is their final program of the semester. It's a huge program that will be outdoors on campus. It's Carroll Fest, so students are very, very excited about the opportunity to come together in a physically distanced way. So we look forward to our programming board and what they have to offer in the fall. I would just also like to mention that in addition to the activities I have already talked about, the Center for Service and Social Action is planning on in-person activities for this fall semester as well. So as you may know, we have developed really strong community partnerships, and many of our partners have really been challenged during the pandemic. The Center for Service and Social Action pivoted last spring, last March, when the pandemic started and we had to move to all online learning. They created virtual partnerships with many of our agencies that we've worked with, and we have continued those virtual activities throughout this year. But obviously, we're looking forward to the in-person activities that will be starting again in the fall. I do want to give you just a quick overview of how our spring semester went. As you may know, we were all remote in the fall, but in January, our students returned to campus for a combination of high flex classes. So we did some remote and some in-person classes. Our residence halls have been open all semester. Students have had the opportunity to have roommates. We did have mandatory COVID testing for our residence hall students when they came back to campus. Students were very, very excited to return to campus. Students had a test. We had a protocol in place for students if they tested positive, but we've had really, really good success this semester. So we did create spaces in a residence hall if students tested positive. We created a quarantine and isolation building that had a capacity of about 140. But I'm very happy to report that the highest number of students we had who either had symptoms or who had close contact with another student who was symptomatic, the highest number we had was around 65. So we feel very fortunate that the comprehensive testing program that we put into place, that we created last fall, really has worked very, very well for us. So our semester has been a success. It's actually very hard to believe that in a few weeks, the semester will be winding down and our students will be taking their final exams, but we're very happy for the success that we've had. So at this point, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Steve Herbert, our Provost and Academic Vice President, and he will give an overview of our academic programs.
Thank you, Sherry. Well, it's a pleasure to be with you today, and I wanted to give you sort of an equal insight and update on the academic life. And a couple bullet points here, and I'll cover them. But these bullet points, in sort of full disclosure, you can see these bullet points at a lot of places. I want to make a couple of comments of where they're distinctive for John Carroll, though. As Sherry mentioned, we're anxious to see students back in our classroom. Our faculty and staff are anxious to be with you in person. That's our experience this spring semester. We're anxious to really get back to a more normal sort of existence. And so we fully expect to have an in-person experience with our faculty and students all together as we were. Of course, we'll follow CDC and Ohio Board of Health guidelines, and we'll adjust to those. But we fully expect that we're going to be back in class, and it's going to be as close to normal as possible, given where we are with our current status in the pandemic and our vaccinations. So that's something that's very exciting to sort of get back to some degree of normalcy. You'll see a little bit, I'll show some examples. Experiential learning is embedded in our DNA, really. Our co-curricular and curricular offerings really thrive on experiential learning and service learning, and opportunities to serve abound. Our liberal arts foundation is in the service of the greater good in the world. That is, what's unique about John Carroll is we have this liberal arts core, and you can find that in a number of places, but we put it in service to something. That is, it really elevates how you go into the world and serve within the discipline and the careers that you choose coming out of John Carroll. We present a challenging and exciting community that pushes everybody to be better. That's a Jesuit term that we call the magis, which means more or greater. And learning takes place both inside and outside the classroom. It's important to recognize that, because you really can't draw a dividing line between when I'm in class and I'm learning and when I'm outside of class and I'm learning. And really, we focus on learning by doing. And sometimes that happens in the classroom, and sometimes that happens in situations that you might be surprised. So as I said, these bullet points, you can hear somebody saying this at a lot of different schools. What really makes us unique is the way we put it into motion. In our next slide, I wanted to show a couple of examples of that. So I'm going to start in the upper right with this yellow sort of food buggy is what it's called. And this is a collaboration between our Center for Service and Social Action, CSSA, and that's one of our service-based centers on campus, one of many, and our entrepreneurial studies program. And it's really taken on a life of its own. And what they did is they said, we can serve the greater good and learn about starting our own businesses. And they took this, they took this food buggy, they created a business program for it. They're going to bring it down to Greater Cleveland, and they're going to run it. And with the proceeds they get from selling the food from the food buggy, they're then, in the weekends and off times, they're going to go and serve underprivileged places that have a real food need, and put it at service to a greater good. So it's really a business model that says I can make something and then give it back. So it's very exciting. We're just launching that. The program got the food buggy, outfitted it, and they just recently sort of launched it, and it's going to start summer into next fall. If you move down clockwise in the lower right-hand corner, service by learning by service learning, or learning by serving and being with others and connecting. We have lots of opportunities for that in addition to experiential learning. This is just a great picture that I captured that shows our students in service to people. In the center, we have one of our various programs of distinction. We have a long-standing relationship with NBC News through our Tim Russert Department of Communications, and our latest senior was named is the Tim Russert Meet the Press Fellowship recipient for the year. It's a 9-month fellowship based in Washington, D.C., serving NBC News as an intern. And Sophia Maltese is our award winner this year, and so we're very proud of her and congratulate her. If you move to the left now, the lower left-hand corner, lots of places have science labs. We have wonderful science labs. We have this huge science palace called the Dolan Center for Science and Technology. That's wonderful. And I'm showing here a business analytics lab, which is something you don't see as much. So analytics is an area of focus for us across multiple different disciplines. In this particular case, I'm showing a business analytics. And we now have a business analytics lab based in our Bowler School College of Business. And then sort of in the same theme, if you go to the upper right-hand corner, this is one of our students in accountancy, and we have one of the top-rated accountancy programs in the state. And our accountancy program has the #1 pass rate in the state of Ohio for the CPA exam. So it's a point of pride for us, but our business college is really top-notch, and our accountancy program is one of the gems of that business college, in addition to all the other fine programs that we have across both colleges. And then in the middle, we just recently finished our celebration of student research that we're very proud of. We had over 140 graduate and undergraduate students present the fruits of their research labor. In poster presentations, I just pasted 2 posters here so you can kind of see them, you can't read them. Plus they had presentations, plus they had demonstrations. So that was a wonderful opportunity for students to present what they've learned over this past week. It's usually it's 3 or 4 days long. It takes us that long to get through all the activities. So that was just a little bit of example of the academic life that you will connect to at John Carroll University. At the lower portion of this, you notice that I focus on student outcomes here, but if you see at the bottom, right next to the John Carroll logo, there's this picture of this smiling man. That is Professor Phil Metras, who's a professor of English and a poet. And he's a recently recognized Guggenheim Fellow. He is also the director of our Peace, Justice, and Human Rights program. So not only is academically and professionally he well known, he is passionate about putting the service of his disciplines to the service of the greater good, in this case, peace, justice, and human rights. So he's passionate about supporting our students. You can't walk around the campus without running into him and seeing him. So I just want to play that up. The reason why our student outcomes, the hero of our stories at John Carroll are students, the reason why their outcomes are so strong is because of our excellent faculty. So the next slide. Who better than to sing the praises of John Carroll than our students? So I just have a couple of quotes here from past students, our alums, really focusing on the kind of experience they had from an academic perspective. As Dr. Cran shared, our student life experience is one, the academic experience is also important. Professors went beyond just teaching in the classroom, as I indicated. They wanted students to learn, succeed, and be inspired. If you had the desire, they would help you get where you needed to go, in keeping with what I promised. The great thing about studying the sciences in John Carroll University was I was surrounded by a support network of professors and classmates that got to know me, understood my goals, and pushed and challenged me to succeed. No matter where I was, the atmosphere is one of both intense study and extreme enjoyment. So how can you be challenged and enjoy yourself so much? It's a lot of fun when you're actually pushed to the edge and you succeed. And our students appreciate that. Everything had a social justice aspect to it. There was a uniquely Jesuit spin on science that sets you up for research in a much more profound way. One of the things we offer, one of the things that's unique about John Carroll as a Jesuit university, Jesuit Catholic university, is that we put in service everything that we do, even the mundane things about the kind of job or outcomes that we have, that really focus on how do I make a paycheck and how do I make my way through the world. We elevate that to a higher level in service to something beyond ourselves. We connect you to the world and the greater good. And that's something that I think we're very proud of at John Carroll. And we have countless examples of our students who've really gone out and made their way with this elevated purpose. And we see that in the outcomes that they display in their future lives. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Stephanie Levinson to make a couple of announcements, and then we'll go on to the next portion.
Thanks, Steve. I wanted to share that we will be addressing any questions that you have. So if you have questions, you can put them in the chat box that's available, and we will be taking time to answer questions upon the conclusion of the next presentation. And that will be done by Lisa Cornelius Brown, who is Senior Director of the Office of Residence Life, to talk about campus housing. So I'll turn it over to Lisa.
Thanks, Stephanie, and I add my welcome along with my colleagues to having you here with us tonight. A couple of things that I want to share with you about campus life as we anticipate your coming to campus in the fall. We know that vaccines are now available across the country based on for those who are 16 and over, and so we strongly recommend that you get vaccinated as you plan to come to campus. We know that that's an important part of how we think about what returning to quote unquote normal is after the pandemic. So we really encourage you to get vaccinated. As a university, we will continue to follow CDC guidance and state mandates regarding COVID-19 safety precautions. So as you know, as we've experienced the past year and a couple of months, that those guidance and mandates change, and we continue to change with those and evaluate what we're doing on campus to follow those and make sure that your health and safety is our top priority. We anticipate, based on what the governor of the state of Ohio has stated and some of the benchmarks that he has stated in terms of COVID in the state of Ohio, that some of the safety precautions in Ohio may be lifted around July 4th. Again, that's not a firm date, but we are eagerly anticipating the information from the governor, and we'll adjust our processes, procedures, and interim policies accordingly. And so for those of you who are coming to live with us on campus, we're very excited to welcome you to an engaging experience in the residence halls. We look forward to welcoming you with a very fun move-in experience. Expect lots of cheering and lots of people around to be excited to have you come onto campus. You will be able to have a roommate. We will have single options available if students are interested in that, but I know that we've received lots of questions in our office of whether or not you'll be able to have a roommate. And yes, you will be able to have a roommate. Our primary focus in the residence halls will be on supporting you in developing connections and relationships with your roommates and other students. We know that those relationships are the piece of your experience that often lasts well beyond your time at John Carroll. And we are also recognize that many of those relationships start in your first year. And so we are going to support you in developing those connections and finding those folks who are going to have an impact on your life, both the years that you're at John Carroll and well beyond. Your health and safety will be our top priority. As I stated in the last slide, we will continue to look at what the CDC guidance and state mandates are around social distancing, masking, and all of that, and we will adjust those things accordingly, but it will be because your health and safety is our top priority. So we'll balance the health and safety with the engaging experience so you can begin connecting and developing relationships. And again, as you think about living in a residential community, we really highly encourage you to get vaccinated.
Thanks, Lisa. I know we have a couple questions that have come in. I'm gonna defer to my co-host, co-moderator, Mike Scanlon, to get those going. And please feel free to continue to add questions if there's something that we have not covered that is important to you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Good evening, everybody. Just a couple questions so far. Please continue to use the Q&A function on the webinar to send your questions in. First up for Lisa, a question about the process of assigning dorm rooms to freshman students and whether they have already received information about that or whether they will be receiving information about how they sign up for dorms.
Sure, great questions, thanks. So once you've deposited to come to John Carroll, one of the next steps of that process is completing your housing application. And information about that is included in your gateway, and you can work through your gateway to accept your housing application and begin the process of being assigned to a residence hall. More details about roommates and residence halls will be coming to you in the coming weeks. But you are not behind. You have plenty of time. You have until June 5th to complete your housing application. And so, you know, I know there's a lot happening for you as you're making your decisions, but please check your gateway. And if you have questions, please reach out to Residence Life or to your enrollment manager, and we can help guide you through that process.
Thank you, Lisa. A question for Stephanie. Approximately how many students would we expect for the class of 2025?
Yeah, we're anticipating well over 625 students in the class of 2025. We have a large number that have already made that commitment. We also know that this has been a very challenging year with the lack of ability to visit until recently for a lot of families. And so we know there's quite a few students making their final decisions right now, but we're really excited about the class of 2025 and all the joy that they're going to bring our campus, as well as the unique talents of the high school students that will be coming and the transfer students who will be joining us this fall as well.
Thank you, Stephanie. A question for Steve or Stephanie. When do registered students make their schedules?
That will happen during our new student orientation process, which kicks off, Sherry, remind me, in June, I believe.
You're correct.
Right.
Early June.
Right. And it will be a multi-step process. You'll start that process in June during new student orientation. And then after we get some continuing information in July, you'll finalize your schedule.
Thank you, Steve. Next up for Lisa, Stephanie, Sherry, or Steve, is there a date set currently for freshmen to move in to the residence halls at John Carroll in the fall?
I can take that question. Thanks, Mike. We have not finalized an exact date for first year move-in. We will be sharing that information in the coming weeks and months. We're still waiting to see as some of the guidelines and mandates as we get clarity around those as the months progress. But we will share that information as soon as we finalize it with students and their families. We anticipate that move-in will take place the week of August 23rd, sometime in the middle of that week probably, but we're still working on some of the final details, but we'll share those as soon as they are finalized.
Thanks, Lisa. This one for Steve, from a legacy family whose older daughter had a wonderful study abroad experience. They're wondering if the prospective daughter would also be able to study abroad and if we foresee those programs taking place in the near future.
Absolutely. We are, at this point, we are not planning for study abroad experiences in the fall. There's too much uncertainty in the world right now for us to be able to send students out. We are making active plans to begin that up in the spring with the expectations that certain parts of the world, at least, will have caught up, will be stabilized when it comes to in terms of the vaccine, and our students would be vaccinated. And so I think we're much more comfortable with the safety at that point. And then I see no reason why we wouldn't expect it to continue on with that. So yes, we are making plans to return to study abroad experiences.
Great, thank you, Steve. A couple questions on summer orientations and whether parents are required to attend and if they have a role as part of an orientation.
I can take that. So this summer, because of our current guidelines that we're following, each student can bring one parent or guardian to our summer orientation program. If no parents are available, that's okay too. But a student would be allowed to bring one parent. Students will be staying in our residence halls when they come to orientation. Parents, if they're not from the area, could stay at one of the hotels, which is nearby campus. But we are very excited to have the opportunity for in-person orientations this summer.
Thanks, Sherry. This one for Stephanie. When is the fee due for summer orientations?
Yeah, the orientation fee is typically added to the student bill. So you should be getting that information either in July or August, just depending upon the schedule. But the orientation fee is added directly to the student bill for the first cycle of billing.
Thanks, Stephanie. Next up, if a student is planning to be an athlete but is not vaccinated, will that be an issue?
You know, I can take that because my true answer is I don't know. And we don't know that yet. I've been in touch with Michelle Morgan, our Senior Director of Athletics, but the NCAA, I believe, has not come out with any definitive information at this point. So this past spring, we've certainly followed the NCAA guidelines regarding testing of our student athletes. And so again, we would follow whatever guidance we get from the NCAA, but they have not come out with it yet.
Thanks, Sherry. Next up, a recommendation on the closest hotels to John Carroll for orientation.
I think, isn't there a Hyatt over at Legacy Village? There's a pretty brand new hotel over at Legacy Village. We're all nodding our heads because that's where we would stay if we were coming. So there's a Hyatt. It's probably 2 miles from campus.
If I could add, I just wanted to add, there are a list of hotels on our website. If you go to the visitors area of our website that give discounts for John Carroll guests, so you might find a reduced rate on that site.
Great, thank you, Stephanie. Next up for Sherry, will vaccines be required for club sports?
Well, so the question was, will vaccines be required for students in club sports?
That is correct.
Okay. Yeah, we don't know the answer to that question yet. Again, it's too early. We will need to wait to see what kind of guidance we get.
And in the meantime, we'll continue to strongly recommend that all of our students get vaccinated. But as it relates to athletics, Sherry is correct there. Next one for Stephanie. When will the final tuition bill be shared?
Yeah, the billing typically happens in mid-July with the first payment due in mid-August. I'd also add that during your orientation this summer, typically you have the opportunity to talk with a member from the enrollment division to go over your anticipated cost, your financial aid, scholarships, so that you can understand what your payment might look like, and we can go over what those options are with you, so you're fully aware of what that looks like.
Thanks, Stephanie. Next up for Lisa or Sherry, will student athletes be moving in earlier than the rest of the freshman class? And if so, do they need a permission from their coach to do so?
I can go ahead and answer that. The student athletes, we work with the coaches to determine when they need to return to campus to begin their conditioning. And so your student's coach will be the primary purveyor of some of that information of when conditioning and training will start for the fall semester. But we will work with the coaches, and if your student is a student athlete, they will, in a fall sport, they may be moving in early, and we will accommodate them and have them move directly into their room for the academic year. But the students' coaches will be working with our office to finalize that.
Great, thank you, Lisa. At this time, there are no more questions. If there are any others, please submit them now. But in the meantime, I'd ask Stephanie to just share some closing thoughts.
Sure. So we know that there are those on the webinar right now that have already committed to John Carroll, those of you making your final decisions. I wanted to make sure that you had information available to you regarding what those next steps are. For students, all of your information is in the Gateway portal. The credentials for the Gateway were recently sent to you on Saturday by your enrollment manager, so you can refer to that email if you've kept it to be able to log in. It will give you what the next steps are, what you've already completed, so you understand what's left for those enrollment next steps. Parents, you can review this information on the site that's listed, but just to give you a little bit of overview on what those might be, obviously making that commitment to John Carroll and submitting your $300 deposit is the first step. Once that's been recorded, your Gateway steps will look different and will transition you to what a new student needs to do to successfully enroll. That might include signing up for your new student orientation date, completing your housing application, submitting your immunization records, thinking about what your final transcripts might look like so that we can receive those in the office sometime this summer, whether it's your final high school transcript that shows that you've graduated. For transfer students, your last semester of college level work and getting those official transcripts. If you've had CCP, college level coursework, AP scores, and we certainly know the College Board has a staggered schedule for AP testing, and so we know AP test scores are going to arrive a little bit later this summer. Those are all the types of things that are part of the enrollment checklist to ensure that you get off to a great start at John Carroll in the fall. If you have questions about this, you certainly can work with your enrollment manager and they can go over that information with you. We're actually offering next steps sessions and you can sign up for those online. I'm sure you've received an email about it, but our enrollment managers can work with you to go over those with you individually if that's what you're looking for. And we want to make sure that you're aware of all those steps and certainly know that our enrollment managers are here to help you. And with that, do we want to take, it looks like there might be a couple questions that came in to wrap up, and then we'll let you get on with your evening.
Yeah, just a couple more here. Thank you, Stephanie. For pre-med students, will there be an opportunity for them to get published? I guess I'd give that one to Steve.
Yes, there are opportunities. There are no guarantees. More importantly, we make available to students and push them, nudge them, gently guide them to be involved in the kind of activities, typically volunteer and health-related fields, that will privilege them and advantage them when they apply to med schools. So we have a process, a pre-med advising capacity that guides through the students all the necessary steps to get into med school, to get into vet school, to get into dental school, and other pre-health opportunities as well.
Hey,
Great.
can I just add on to that, Mike?
Yeah.
John Carroll has a volunteer JCU EMS program that many of our pre-med students participate in. And I think it is such an example of a great opportunity to connect the in-class and out-of-class activities.
Great point, Stephanie. You're not Stephanie, you're Sherry. Great point, Sherry.
No
Sorry,
problem.
I'm thinking of Stephanie for the next question here. Did the login information for the gateway get sent only to students, or did parents receive it as well?
Yes, it was only sent to students. So if you're wondering what that is, ask your student and beg them to show you the email. We send it to students only for privacy reasons. I know you're the parent, I'm a parent, I get it, but we only send the login information to students.
Great, thanks. Last question in the queue at the moment. Is there a language placement test for enrolled students? And when would that be?
So I have to profess a little bit, I don't believe there is. If you have experience in language during high school, typically that will translate over, you stay in the same language. If there is a test, it's usually done through new student orientation when you come here, and it's administered by our classics and minor language department. But I don't believe there's a placement test for our language.
Great. Okay, with that, I want to thank all of our panelists for taking part tonight. Also thank the parents and students who've tuned in. Keep in mind, your enrollment managers are always available to you for additional questions you have in the run up to the fall of 2021. And you can be assured that we will continue to share information related to health and safety on campus, activities on campus, life on campus, via email and via our website and social media. So again, thanks to everyone. This webinar will be posted to John Carroll's YouTube page in the next 24 hours. That's youtube.com/John Carroll U. And again, always reach out with your questions, and we can't wait to see you in the fall. Thank you, everyone.